Hey everybody, this is Tim Easton, and you're listening to Walking the Floor.
I'm walking the floor over you.
Walking the floor.
I'm walking the floor. Walking the floor over you. Hola, senors and senoritas, and welcome to Walking the Floor. We're back in 2017. So happy belated New Year. I'm Chris Shiflett, your host as always. We've got a lot of good stuff coming up in the coming weeks. Some good interviews with the likes of Rodney Crowell, Courtney Marie Andrews, Aaron Lee Tasjan, just to name a few. And of course, today we're going to kick off the new year with my buddy Tim Easton. We have a nice, long, honest, deep conversation. So grab a beer or, a cup of coffee or something. Sit back, settle in, because it's going to be a long episode today. Well, actually, I think that the majority of people listen to podcasts in their car. So maybe don't grab a beer. Coffee's fine. Maybe grab a water. Whatever you feel. Okay, so, I wanted to thank everybody who came out to those shows I did around the holidays, opening for X. They were great. Super fun to get out there and play, my new songs with a full band and hear what that sounded like. Got some more solo acoustic shows coming up in February. I'm going to open up for Dave House at his record release party over at the Redwood in LA. And I'm going to play with my buddy Timmy Curran and also Paul Cannon down in Encinitas at Univ Surf Shop, continuing the Surf Shop tour. And I don't want to blow the surprise or anything, but I will blow the surprise. I'm planning some solo gigs coming up here soon. We're routing a tour. It's going to be a short tour, but it's going to be a tour. So all those people, yelling at me on my Instagram posts, I will get to a few of those cities. Not all the cities, but a few select cities. I'll have that information hopefully soon. We'll make some kind of announcement or something, but it's all in the planning stages now. Even some festival stuff. So that's all I'm going to say for now, but it's coming soon. And of course, before I go out there and do any tour dates at all, I always head over to Zounds.com. Zounds.com. The greatest online resource for all of your music gear needs. Head on over there. They're going to beat anybody's price, get you your gear faster than all the competition because they are Zounds.com. Okay, so before we get too deep into today's episode, I wanted to rant a little about politics. Although, I understand that it bums some of you out when I talk politics. So maybe you want to fast forward right now and get through it, go right to the interview, or maybe you can just turn it off. You're free to turn it off, but I'm free to speak my mind on my show. And right now, 2017 is not the time to be sitting on the fence, in my opinion. Because by the time I post this here episode, we're going to have a brand new president, President Trump, who Matt Taibbi lovingly refers to as the insane clown president. I'd say it's safe to say the next 4 years at least are going to be a total disaster for this country. I'm basing that, of course, on Trump's cabinet picks and, just Trump. The guy's a walking disaster. But I think all too often, many of us on the left fail to hold our guys accountable. When the Democrats come into power, we just kind of turn that, accountability switch off in our brains. And I think that there's been a lot of that in the last 8 years. And I think there's an incredible amount of that going on right now with people wanting to blame James Comey and Russia and, white racists and all the rest of it for Clinton's loss, which just deeply misses the point to me. I think we really need to stew for a while on the fact that if the system was working for the masses would not turn to a strongman, a lunatic, to try to solve their problems. And I'm not saying he's going to solve their problems. I'm not a Trump supporter, obviously. But I think it's imperative that we hold our guys to account, to the same standard that we hold Republicans to, and get our house in order. Unless you want to just see the power elite in this country continue to play hot potato with the government, which I don't. That's all I got about that for now. Let's get to the interview. So yeah, I've been trying to connect with Tim Easton probably for a few years. I think almost as long as I've been doing this podcast was maybe when I first reached out to him. And it's never lined up that we've been in the same place at the same time until a few months ago when he passed through LA. But we've emailed back and forth, over the years. And although I don't really know him, I could recognize in his emails that he was a cool guy with a good sense of humor. And I'm just a huge fan because I've been listening to, I guess I first got turned on to his music through the Haynes Boys, the record he did with the Haynes Boys, which if you haven't ever heard that record, you should go to Spotify like right now and listen to it. It's great. But he's also, been making solo records for years, and I've followed his career all along, and I just love his music and really just wanted to get together and have a conversation with him. So we did, and we had a great, long, honest, open talk about everything from growing up in Ohio to his first skiffle band to relationships and marriage and parenting and his career and just kind of everything. So without further ado, this is the self-described lone wolf troubadour, Tim Easton, on Walking the Floor.
Your hindsight being clear as a bell.
Good morning, Venice, California.
It's working.
Yeah.
It's working. So where'd you drive in from this morning? I think
Just
I saw
Corona.
Just Corona.
Just Corona.
Oh, I thought you were coming from the desert because
I was in the desert for Joshua Tree Music Festival this weekend,
okay.
and that was amazing because I used to live out there. But then I played a house concert in Corona.
Oh wow!
It turned out to be at like a country club waiting room. Classic Tim Easton strange gig, a country club bar.
Nice
is what it was, and it's supposed to be a 50-minute drive. It was 2 hours and 10 minutes.
Welcome to Southern California.
I remember I used to live here, and I lived in Los Feliz, and I loved it.
Right,
and I love the town actually. Just there is definitely an overwhelming feeling of pain in the rush hour time, or
Yes.
maybe it's 2:00 in the afternoon or whatever. I remember when I lived in Joshua Tree, coming into LA and back, I used to love to do it like in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
That was the best time to do it.
You know what's funny about that? Because nowadays, I always feel like that. Like the rush hour has pretty much expanded to be all day, any time of day. And so at night, like if I have a gig, down in Orange County or San Diego or something, I'm always like, I'm going to shoot home and it's going to take me like no time at all. But what happens at night now is they close bits of the freeway to work on it. Like all of LA freeways are under construction pretty much all the time, it seems like. So you're like driving home and then you'll be in like somewhere in Orange County where you don't know your way around, you get routed off the freeway. That's what happens to me. They kick you in the teeth all day long around here, man.
Yeah, the Guy Clark song and the Tom Waits song about LA freeways are just like, they're just dreams. They're probably just glorious good times.
No, it used to be like that.
Compared to what it is now.
Yeah. No, when I first, when I was a kid, or even when I first moved to LA, I grew up in Santa Barbara. When I first moved to LA, like there was rush hour in the morning and rush hour in the evening, and that was it. Like the weekends, there was never any traffic. You could get anywhere you wanted all day long.
Midwestern stuff, normal Midwestern stuff.
But I feel like that's actually become the case in most American cities, period. I feel like the LA traffic has gone everywhere.
I'm done with the big city living. I lived in a bunch of them for a year or more. I lived in Paris for a year. I lived in London for a year. I lived in Tokyo for 3 years when I was a kid.
Really?
Yeah, and then New York for a year, LA for a year. So I've gotten around and lived in some pretty major big cities, and now I'm in Nashville, which is a city and is got its growing pains, massive growing pains. It's in a boom.
It's growing
town.
a lot.
Yeah, it's in a boomtown era right now, and I love it because I bought a house there, so it's like the best investment I ever made. So
right,
everything's good. But yeah, I don't go anywhere during certain times of day. I just make sure that I don't get in that place of anger or resentment just because of traffic. It's just not worth it. And so I don't know. I just toured the Eastern Seaboard. Mm-hmm. So it seemed like from Boston to Baltimore, it was just one long Jersey wall of traffic.
Right.
And I'm completely the lone wolf troubadour type. Like I'm by myself in a rental car. Or a
really?
car.
So you don't go out with a band?
No, I don't do. I can't afford it.
Right.
Really. I mean, I just didn't. I don't have a manager. I'm really kind of. My career is up down up down up down, and I've never stayed in a place long enough to develop what's going on in that scene. I've shifted around so much, but now in Nashville, I've been there over 4 years. So, and I've been making records there for a long time. That's where I used to go to make records, and right now I just go to my neighborhood people and make them. And my neighborhood's full of not only great musicians, but the dudes who can fix tape machines and maintain tape machines and are really good with gear and stuff.
Is your new album done on tape?
No, just a little bit of it.
Right.
The 12-string song, the slide song, but I've used it a lot, and it's now great to know engineers that know what they're doing. I don't. I mean, I have the home rig just like all of us, but I don't trust my ears or something when it comes to preamps and stuff like that. I want to think I'm good at it. I use it for demos and stuff, and every now and then I nail it, and then bring that into the studio or something and work on it. But mostly I just think of it as like my Pro Tools rig is a extended 4-track or a really fancy 4-track, and I use it like a 4-track. And I
love being in the studio with guys that are really great.
Yeah, there's definitely
that really understand.
You appreciate it.
Yeah,
you learn that, and I think from the years of the rock and roll of the growing up in the not necessarily punk rock with me, but just drummers hitting that ride and hitting that crash cymbal and just tight quarters. I think years of that has damaged my hearing because I can't, because I'll mix something at home and I'll put it in the car, which is where we mostly all listen to music. It's where I listen to it. So there's some turntable stuff at home, of course, but I put it in the car and I get in there and I'm like, oh man, the high end's gone, or it's like I don't know what I'm. So either I don't have great monitors, or I just don't trust my ears to mix really well. And then so when you meet a great producer, in my case, it's been this guy named Patrick Dampier, who works out.
He did the new one.
Yeah, he works out of Club Roar in Nashville, and it is super dialed in. Like Dan Auerbach's co-worker engineers moved some stuff in there, and so it's got loads of great gear. And Patrick is one of those producers that also plays every instrument well.
Right.
So he ended up adding a few things here and there, some keyboards and stuff to mine, but it was pretty much a live album done. And when you're doing that with a band and tracking with a band and singing with a band, like Dylan style or whatever, you definitely want the best engineers in the world. And Nashville's, full of them.
Well, your new album is really lush.
Yeah.
It's like the production value of it is to my ear sounds really high
end. We sweetened it with some female vocals. That's what
which
really
sounds great. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, and those are all my neighborhood friends. In fact, my daughter's piano teacher.
Oh, really?
It's a classic Nashville thing. It's like everybody, the UPS man's a songwriter,
right.
the pizza man, the barista, of course, the exterminator is a blues man, and everybody plays.
Did you get all them to come down?
Well, it just turns out that way. If you run into someone enough in your neighborhood, it's like proximity. It's the way people fall in love with each other too. It's like you're around each other a lot. So you keep running into someone, you're like, we should probably, let's work together. And there's the reason we keep crossing each other's path. And, so there is a lushness to the record because of Patrick Dampier, 100%. He works under the band name Field Days. And he's just making his debut album. He's a young man. His dad worked for Loretta Lynn.
Oh, really?
And so he's got like old Nashville, blood in him and stuff. But he's just, he's an amazing musician, and he's amazing. His engineering skills and mixing skills are top. So he was the one that brought that what was a live band, and then just made it super lush with a couple of sweet touches.
And you said you two are just solo. How do you go from this lush, beautiful, layered album to then how do you reproduce that live?
Well, I don't.
And I'm asking because I have an acoustic gig coming up and I'm not comfortable doing that. Well, so I'm always wondering what other people do.
I was a street musician for 7 years in Europe.
You busked around Europe, right?
Yeah, that's what I did when I first realized I wanted to do this and I'm going to do it, and was into the poetry and everything. And then I went over to Europe to busk and write. At first I was playing in my 20s. Like I went to Ohio State for a while. So in my young 20s, I went over there and started busking. And, I was singing some Sonny Terry, Brown and McGee, Doc Watson, and then like some contemporary stuff like REM and Ween, a couple of like fun things for me to sing.
Had you been in bands prior to that, or was that your first?
I was into like a skiffle band, totally skiffle band.
Skiffle?
Yeah,
How do you put a skiffle band together?
Well, you know,
that's a scene that like does not exist at all. I'm guessing.
I know. Yeah, Billy Bragg was just talking about skiffle with Otis Gibbs on his podcast. Thanks for giving a damn. And I don't know. I just like we had an upright bass, washboard player, and me, and it was completely skiffle-y, and you know, that was probably a major Beatles thing influence.
Yeah,
sure. I was into folk music. I was not letting, you know, grunge get to me yet. You know what I mean? It was actually hadn't at that time. It hadn't even started really. You know, so people weren't shifting over to Seattle yet, and.
Like what year would this be that you went
This
to?
was the late 80s.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm an older gentleman. And, nobody seems to know it. And, you know, I've kept young through music and traveling somehow. And you know, I've been really lucky in that respect. But
that's funny because I think that the road tends to age you like in dog years.
There has been some things I've done.
You look pretty good for a guy that's been hitting the road that long.
Yeah, sobriety and flirting with sobriety will do that. But to get back to what you asked about, like I think of a song, if you can't play a song by yourself on the guitar or the piano, maybe it's not a song exactly. I mean, I love the Beatles as much as, you know, any studio geek, you know, like layering stuff and having fun. And you know what they did? I mean, well, they're the Beatles for starters. They you know, it's hard to like compare really anything to that, but they stopped touring and started making albums that you really couldn't reproduce live
at that time.
So I just figured, you know, I'm not going to be able to afford it to bring, you know, occasionally in Nashville put a band together, but I
like
think
practically, like, what do you? Here's my main question.
Yeah.
Is how do you play like little melody lines and stuff that maybe are important, or even like guitar leads? Like, what do you do when the guitar lead comes up? Like, everybody imagine the chords.
No, I just I mean,
or do you just rip into it?
I think that the years of folk music and learning how to Travis pick early on has helped me be able to do a live show. And since I'm kind of the president of the record company now, it's like there's no sweat for me. Like you've got to play these new singles. You've got to do it just like that. I go out and I try to put on a good show that moment, that night for that room. I completely cater it to that and play those songs that I can do well by myself. And then some of the other ones that are way more produced on the record, I've got my ways of doing them now that fill out the sound. And yeah, I do.
It's got to make you much more flexible as a performer, I'm guessing.
Yeah, it does. It changes from night to night.
All the time.
Yeah, it changes from night to night. Oftentimes, I won't even make a set list. I just have I have a lot of tunes now, you know. So I will, and it's great to not have the pressure to have to play these certain songs.
Right.
That definitely frees it up. So you go in there and just like, I'm going to entertain these people right now and make this night a good night so we can not, you know, think about whatever else is going on in the fucked up world. We can just like get to it, you know?
Yeah. Let's back up a little bit and start with, where did you grow up?
Yeah.
Because you mentioned that you lived in Tokyo as a kid, and I know that you, when did you grow up? And I know that I read that you spent some time like in the Dominican Republic. Like, were your parents diplomats or something? Why did you move around so much?
Oh yeah, you know what? I grew up in Akron, Ohio. That's where I learned to drive a car, and went to the same high school as Chrissy Hine, and the Black Keys, and Joseph Arthur. It's like this little neighborhood of hyper creativity, actually. And,
it's funny. Growing up, I never thought of Ohio as like this hotbed of rock and roll, but like there really does. Yeah. There's like a great rock and roll history there, right?
It's that working class. It's like that factory town thing. See, Akron was rubber city, and they were factories, and it was a working class.
That was the industry that got shipped away.
Yeah,
eventually.
Yes, it got shipped away, and all through that whole Akron, Detroit, Cleveland, right up through the Rust Belt. That's what that is. So there's a pretty fertile rock and roll thing going on there, and a lot of great, record collecting dudes. That's what it is. It's like what was the record store down the street?
Guitar shops too.
Yeah, and who had the and we're like right there on the border of Canada. My mom's Canadian, and it's like it's that record store you went to that had the old dude in there that was like, hey, check this out. This is Elmore James. This is what George Harrison was talking about. This is the history of the music that you love now. Like, these are the people they loved. And if you had that, you got a head start. I think if you had like a good teacher at a record store, or older brothers and sisters like I had that had tons of vinyl, you know.
You had older siblings then?
I am the youngest of 7. Yeah. So 4 older brothers, 2 sisters, and tons of vinyl and tons of eras of vinyl, like right from you know, the 60s up through.
You're the youngest of 7. So your oldest sibling like could have been your parent, I'm guessing.
Could have been.
In terms of age.
Yeah. He was 16.
That's a pretty wide range of musical taste, I'm guessing.
Yeah, man. He was 16 when I was born, and he's the one that got me into Doc Watson and the blues, basically. And my mom did work for the library in Akron, so there's
something people don't, I think, realize. Like when I was a kid, and when you were a kid, we got a lot of records from the library. I remember my brother got the first time we heard a Black Sabbath record was from the Santa Barbara Public Library.
Like, we can get this at the library. Yeah. I mean, it's a fact. Like the pen is always going to be mightier. There's literature out there waiting for people in libraries that are like, wow, this is pretty controversial stuff, and it's great, and I love it. And musically, there was vinyl at the library, so my mom would actually get Castaway records that were like the library was ditching, and so I would get them that way. And I mean, I grew up there. My dad worked for Goodyear, so tire company, so that's why we were in Japan. They transferred the whole company over to Japan, so he was more in the corporate level. I wasn't down he wasn't in the factories or anything. Got to make that clear, because that is a pretty distinct difference, you know, that middle class, working class thing, and so I was really fortunate, really. And then the travel bug just kicked in after that, after the 4th or 5th grade, coming back from Japan. You know, the thing about the Dominican Republic is flat out, it's like my parents being smart. They knew that if I hung around in Akron for the summer, that I was going to get busted with my pot smoking buddies and just get in, trouble, right? So they were like,
how old were you when that adventure took
I was
place?
16 when they sent me. It was basically like kind of like hipster Catholics or something, you know, like it
was like a Peace Corps kind of thing?
Yeah, it was Junior Peace Corps, basically is what it was. It's called Amigos de las Americas, and it was amazing. And at 16, I learned to speak Spanish, and like intense training, and then immunization training. So we learned to give shots for diphtheria, pertussis, and typhoid, and like the oral polio vaccinations. And I was sent down there and worked in the barrios of the Dominican Republic, and it had a profound impact on my life, as you can imagine.
I think I just saw on your Instagram feed that you got a flu shot, and then I think I also saw on your Instagram feed that there was like a Bolano novel, so that kind of ties into the library and the
way deep into Bolano, and also just the Chilean poets, obviously Neruda, and then onward from there. There's just a rich history of poetic expression in that country. I've not been there, but it's like moved up on my places I want to go. I want to go to Chile, and I want to do the Trans-Siberian Express. I want to cross Russia in the train.
Oh, you got to go. Yeah. You got to go down and do the one-man acoustic troubadour through South America.
Well, I'm working on it.
I'm surprised you haven't done that. That seems like right up your alley.
Well, like you, I'm a dad now, right? So it's like, let's try to be realistic here about like, my daughter's only 6 years old now, and she, she's already reading music. So she's got a great piano teacher who sings on my album, and of course, I joke every other night on stage about her, like quitting school, there'll be no 2nd or 3rd grade. We're just going to hit the road together and do the family band thing.
Yeah.
That's a fun dream and everything. But the reality is I don't want to be like some of my heroes and not be there at all for my kiddo. And it's hard because like I don't have anything else I could do. Okay, I could go back home and get the job, but this is my job. This is my job. This is what I do, and I love doing it. So it's not always great. There's some feast and famine going on in my life because of poor choices that I made.
Well, also the changing economics of the music and record industry.
Music's free, man.
Well,
music's free. I'm selling necklaces and shit.
Right.
Yeah, music is free, but I think also there's been a really good shift lately with the bringing the vinyl on the road. There's music fans out there. They now know, they're like, oh my God, these people who made this choice in their life, their industry got gutted, and there are super fans out there that are buying merch more now because they're like, they know that when they come to my show and buy it from me, they know that it's supporting me. So thank you to all you people out there that have figured out that, yeah, you know, you can listen to my album for free right now on Spotify or YouTube. And so coming to the show and buying it or getting a shirt or getting whatever and is like the benefactors of art now and folk culture, I think, you know.
And
so.
you do a lot of stuff to sort of serve that fan, right? Like hand-painted album
covers,
yeah. Kickstarter campaigns with bonus stuff.
Yeah, I did a pledge campaign, and it worked out great. It was like, this is the first album. I want to, you know, send out a huge pat on the back to myself and everybody really.
If it wasn't for me, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah, it's the first album in like 4 or 5 albums where I've now broken even in the first month and moved forward. So you
broke even in the first month.
Yeah, like so. It's
really
basically now. It's like going platinum in the folk world, you know?
But you're back on a label now, because
there is true.
History.
That's true. He
you
did
were
make the
on
vinyl.
New West, right?
Yeah, I was
for
on
quite
New
a while,
West.
and then
Yeah.
did a couple sort of self-funded, maybe self-released things, and then now you're on Last Chance Records.
Yeah, Last Chance is Travis Hill out of Little Rock, and that's true. Since he did pay for the vinyl to be made, this is great. We partnered together on this,
right.
But it's all handshake thing,
right?
You know?
Sure.
It's not like nary a lawyer in sight,
right?
You know, and nor is there a publicist on this record. It's like
really?
it's me and Travis, man.
Right.
Yeah, you and I are here talking right now because of, you know, mutual, you know, fan stuff and just like knowing about each other's work. But nope, no publicist, and I think that's probably the main reason I've broken even already. You know, let's face it. Let's face it. I mean, the last record, no problems, but you know, I threw down a good chunk of change on that, and the results are basically the same. It's like there's a lot of there's a lot of megaphones out there trying to shout out there, and a lot of people making records. I mean, we can, you know, so
and a lot of people touring, because that's the only way people can make a buck anymore.
Right. And yeah, fortunately for me, I'm able to do it. I'm able to tour, and I found a crew of people around the world that support me. And like this year, I got to go to Australia, and in a couple of weeks, I'll head off for Spain, and you know, yeah, it's like it's been fortunate that what little I have, when I see some of the things that some people I know are going through, and of course, living in Nashville, you see what's going on. It's like,
yeah,
whenever I get ready to complain about something like traffic in LA, I try to remember people that have real problems in the world, say those in Haiti right now, or just some of my contemporaries or friends that are out there slugging it down the highway to play for 20 people in a singer-songwriter room. You know, it's really, really challenging taking a band on the road. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like, you mentioned that you played a house party that turned out to be like in a bar at a country club or whatever, which is a home of sorts. But tell me about that, because I've never done that. And like Otis Gibbs, you mentioned a minute ago, I know he does that a lot. And I know that there's like a scene that has developed over the years of touring and playing, literally like playing people's house. What is that like? How do you arrange that? There are sites on the internet that talk about it and show different routes, but really it's just over years of doing it, you develop relationships. And I went to my share of South by Southwest, you know, like more than 10 of them actually. And now the Americana Fest that happens in Nashville a couple weeks ago is basically like South by Southwest 10 or 20 years ago. Just people love music, and there's day parties now. I mean, people are listening to music. It's less, I don't know, media crazy. Although, you know, everybody's trying to make a living and do their thing. But the house concert thing comes about from just years of slugging it out, and there are a couple like big ones or whatever that are, you know, they book them like almost a year in advance too. Really? Oh yeah, it's very competitive.
Who comes and how do they promote it and all? Is it
they have
better than playing a bar where you know you're going to get even if, let's say, it's the same amount of people that show up, it's like just a more hardcore fan? Well, yeah, you're cutting out the middleman. So, you know, and really, you know, I do have a booking agent. There's one thing I have, and thank him very much, Joe Lekis, who lives down the street from me in Nashville, and you know, he's got a home studio, and he books shows for me and helps me organize it. And I do kind of shift everything over to him so I don't, you know, mess it up
which I could do really fast, right? So, but like the house concert things, like, yeah, you're cutting out the promoter middleman thing right there. So a lot of the more successful house concerts are great because the people that come to them might not even know you, but they know that their friend is going to book a unique traveling act that maybe is, not above is not up there in the fame world of like just at different levels. So it's a lot about trust. The audience trusts the person who runs the gig to book something fascinating and interesting and new and something they haven't heard yet. And then there's the merch buying side of it, which is just the best. So it's almost like everybody leaves with a t-shirt and a piece of art, man. They know what's going on, and that it's super folky is what it is. If which it's cool that word is kind of changed through the year, but that's really what it is. It's just the people, and you're not on this big, huge level of you don't have I don't have a team of people that I have to work that are on a salary for me, which is, that would be, that's great for folks. But like right now I just have to kind of work for me and my family and my agent now. And then, to help, there's a couple things, of course, but I definitely like avoid like this tour and this record. There has not been a lawyer or a publicist involved in it. And I'm not saying that is, the way to go or anything. It just, that's the way it is for me right now. And I'm down there in the trenches slugging it out, but like kind of enjoying it because of, I've been ups and downs over the years so many times that right now I'm at the place where I can actually do this. And the only hard part about it is that I'm not home enough, and I want to change that. And instead of what I'm trying to do, basically, I love the podcast thing because it's like about being completely honest. And like, there's a big problem in the world with people that say one thing behind closed doors and then in the front, they're just like someone else. So it's like, been trying to shift that in my own life, it's just to be, and what I'm trying to say is that, the traveling life is good. But what I'm trying to do is, instead of playing, like, you get one good gig, let's say you get a festival gig. Yeah. I'm trying not to book 4 shitty gigs to get there and back. Right. Right. Just like $200 at the Bennigan's on Route 30, just get whatever. Right. Just for gas money. To get it's there, like, I'm not, what I'm trying to do is just fly to the good gig and fly back home and not be out on the road, going to Walmart to get a bathing suit, whatever.
How have these shows been since you put your record out?
Good. Yeah. There has been some interesting mishaps. Right. I feel like if I'm about to say it, like I'm going to insult somebody. Right. You know what I mean?
You don't have to name names.
Well, let's just say Buffalo. Right. Let's just say that's where I was born, up in that zone. And I had a great time that night. Opening up for a metal band called, they were called
Slayer.
No, that would be great. There would have been some more people there. No, they were called Tension. Anyways, so it's one of those, like, it becomes comical, and all of a sudden my life becomes this tragicomedy sitcom moment of funniness. I'm like the armchair anthropologist. So I'm going to find a good time no matter what. But I was playing this bar called the Mohawk Bar in Buffalo, which is a classic old punk rock bar. And like, my picture's on the wall from the 90s when I played in there. Yeah. It's like from back in the day, slugging it out with my college band. And, but like now it's like, there's like 6 or 7 people there that to come and see. There's just one. This is just one night. I'm picking that. Yeah. Where you're like, oh man, what the fuck am I doing out here? I got a kid. I can't do this. So that happened in the last month, and I have dear friends in Buffalo, and the promoters, like, seriously, I love them. Yeah. I mean, but like, that was one night we were like, oh man, I better get my shit together. It's like, how slow like slow
time
learner
to reevaluate
again. And I'm like, I've been doing this for a while. Like, how slow of a learner am I? Why will I not learn from my mistakes? Like, really strange. But then, show up to New York City and have an amazing night. Right. And right. So
then you forget the rough one.
Yeah. It's so that there's been a couple, and I've never talked about it like that.
Having kids changes things. I feel like out on the road, and because it's funny listening to you tell that story, because I've had some similar experiences when I'm out touring with, various things I do outside of Foo Fighters, where you're like, I'm missing my son's birthday. Yeah. And I'm 1,000 miles from home and there's 10 people here. What the fuck am I doing now?
Apparently, yeah. And if it's great to hear you say that, because people need to know that it kind of empowers some of the other, people out there slugging it out in the trenches, that you've got work, and stuff like that. And there's a difference between also when you're now making your own album and you're going to go out there and do it, and there's going to be, all kinds of different nights out there. But let's bring up Townes Van Zandt. Let's bring him into this. Like, I played a gig with him once, and it was a mess, and I loved it.
Towards the end of his life.
Yes, it was about a year before he died.
Right.
And he was just a mess.
Yeah.
People were asking for their money back.
Oh, wow.
And the promoter, I opened up the show, and he was sitting in the front row, and I didn't even recognize him. And he got up on stage, and it was just one of those hard nights. And everybody that has seen him knows that there's been nights like this, right? So the promoter said something to me at the end of the night. He said, "Is that the way you want it to go for you?" And I was like, I got drunk with Townes that night. We I was like, I was kind of just in my own thing. And but now years later, I think back on it, it's like, and I've gotten to know his son, JT, and it's like, he says in that documentary, he's like, a lot of people love my dad and think about him as this great romantic character, but meanwhile, there's some kids at home without a dad. And like, I just don't want my daughter to have to say those kinds of things. So as I'm here slowly kind of shifting it, it's still hard because I have to do it. Like, I don't know who's going to, are you going to give me a job? Like, sorry, but like, my resume has been a bit of a rambling man,
Yeah, sure.
And I love to do it.
Do you ever get to bring your wife and kids out on tour? Like,
there's been a couple festival things. Yeah. But I really can't afford it, and it's not as easy as you think, to do it, or as people would like to think. But I get asked that question all the time by friends and moms, that are like, they know. And there's a luckily Nashville has got a great support system of parents and friends and all that.
But a lot of people going through similar experiences.
Yeah, but that's still not enough. I mean, I'm just sitting here, I'm just trying to tell it like it is with you, because I don't want it to be like, oh, dad's home now. Now you stay with dad and have fun with dad while mom gets back to her 3 jobs.
Right.
And which is true. Like my wife runs an art gallery in Joshua Tree, the Red Arrow Art Gallery, which is, my wife's part of the Nashville art establishment for what, in all the good ways.
Yeah.
So she's got it going on. She's nailed it in Nashville. She's nailing it right now. And the community's really embraced her. And there's a good reason for it. She took the gallery that she started in Joshua Tree and brought it to Nashville, and just is kicking ass. And it's like, I'm super proud of her.
Is she an artist as well?
No, she just curates and takes artists in right now. Right now she's got Lori Sturratt, who's John Sturratt from Wilco's sister. She's got a show in the Red Arrow Gallery in East Nashville. And it's, so, she's involved. She's babysitting artists, and she doesn't need to babysit me. You know what I mean? Like, I'm feeling some pretty, pulls to like change some things in my life. And I love making records. I don't want to stop doing that. I'm not going to stop doing that. Right. I'm certainly not going to stop writing songs. That I just can't even help. That's just what I do. And so I'm in a moment right now of many questioning, like, what do I care about? Like, what do I live for? What's going on?
What are the priorities?
Yeah. Instead of, I was like all wanting to start a podcast, a couple years ago. And as you know, it takes up a lot of your time. It's like
time consuming. That's for sure.
It's the editing, man. It's the editing
exactly.
thing.
That's so true. Especially, and I don't have engineering skills. So like, I mean, I'm getting better at the little things I need to do to get the podcast together, but it's also, that's the most boring part. I love the interview. I love this.
Right.
But having to listen back to that, I don't want to listen to myself.
No.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's nice listening to you.
I'm doing my best to blab on through it. Yeah.
No, it's good. It's good. Yeah. Blab on. I like it.
Yeah. That's what we do. I have the gift of the gab for sure. That's not a problem for me. I've noticed some of the people, some of my heroes, are not like that. And back to Towns, I just
makes it a lot easier to interview somebody if they're comfortable.
Yeah,
talking,
right. Yeah, just if they're blabby, if they got too many thoughts in their head, and they've had a bunch of coffee. So the Towns thing had a profound impact on what do I really want? Like, what do I want? How do I want I think that's the most. I think the most important thing in life is raising children. I mean, that's
absolutely
I believe that's why our country is in rough shape right now with the choices we have politically and the education thing, because parenting just took a big slip, right? And I'm saying all this as I'm kind of slipping as a parent. So I just want to say that I'm not pointing fingers or anything. Like, I'm really trying to get my shit together in that department, because we're doing great. We're lucky. We have a great human being who's doing well in school, and we have great schools and all that. Right. But I've got to rope it in and use Nashville for what it's good for. And that's like that 4 or 5 day tour, and then come back. That's what those guys did back in the day.
Sure. It's like those guys that do the Thursday to Sunday thing.
Yeah. Bill Monroe would head out of town, beat some guy up, seduce somebody's wife, come back. Well, he's not here to kick my ass. So,
now there's a parenting role model.
Give your kid a quarter in the town square afterwards.
Nice.
Yeah. The town is good for the traveling, the regional, the circumference of gigs that are within a few hours is nice. But, I'm up, down lately. It's been a little bit of everything. This new album, I'm super proud of it, and there's been a lot of good radio stuff happening for me, like Low on the Dial. Like,
it's like when I listen to it, it's. You always make great records, but this one seems somehow. It just seems like a fuller production, or a more realized songs. I don't know I can't exactly put my finger on it, but like, there's something about you. It's interesting to hear you talk about the sort of the up down thing and the struggles and whatnot, because it's such a great record. It just
Thank
seems,
you.
It really seems like you hit on something this time that maybe, I don't know, something different for you.
It's I don't like to make the same record twice, and this is like my 9th solo album, so there's quite a few examples of what I've been through, but it's always the same thing. I did come from a kind of a folky world, so I've always got, if you've got that, you're set for life, really. I think, because you're not part of a fad,
right. Speaking of a fad, what do you make of the uptick in Americana as a genre in recent years? It seems like it's gotten wildly more popular, or maybe more trendy to to be labeled Americana. And it just seems, with Americana Fest, all this stuff happening nowadays.
I welcome it, because
do you get reap some reward from that?
Oh, certainly. I welcome it, because it's what I've been doing the whole time, kind of thing. It's like, that's where I came from back when I was in that skiffle band, and all of a sudden grunge hit and stuff. I didn't switch up the gears that much. We might have added some electricity to the whole thing, and certainly that just happens through the evolution of rock and roll. You're bound to plug some stuff in and get dirty, but I still I don't use pedals that much when I play electric guitar. I like the sound of a guitar through an amp. Of course we benefit from it.
Sure.
I'm not going to say I was there in the avant-garde of Americana or anything, because that would be, Johnny Cash and Hank Williams and, Bill Monroe. But it's true that the great thing about it is that the people that are really nailing it in that world, some of them are my friends and my comrades and inspirations. Like, it's kind of altered the way Nashville is now, and it's great to see what Dave Cobb's doing, and the records he's making are great. They're great records, man. Let's face it. They're records that are going to last more than a season. Like I get to address in my record, and there's not so much. I also rail on drum machines a little bit on my album lyrically,
which is funny because I thought I remembered that you had done some drum machine
I love
stuff
drum
early
machines.
in your solo work. But when I went back to look for, am I thinking of somebody else? Because
what we did is organic loops.
Oh, okay.
We built Special 20. My first solo album has got like an oil can looped with a couple of I mean, and I still work that way.
Right.
And I.
It's funny though, when you with a lyric like that, it made me giggle a little bit because I was thinking, oh God, I bet he gets like hammered on that
all the time.
When it's like that's not necessary. You're not like you can write that because it's maybe how you feel in 1 second or whatever, but it's not necessarily a condemnation of all use of drum machines across the.
No, I love it, man. Of course, I use drum machine. I love it when I get a good drummer or a good beat going. Or I just mic the drums with one mic, and build a loop. And then loop it,
right?
And, cut and paste the loop together to help write a song. Because when a great drummer is playing, I can start writing a song immediately.
Sure,
it's very much like that. Well, I was gonna say very much like, but not as successfully as like like what Keith says about Charlie all the time. Like Charlie Watts starts playing the drums, I start writing songs. It's really true for me. Like I can just, it's just being an improvisational musician, or all those years of improv, or
is that your part? Is that like your songwriting process? Do you write with other people in the room playing? No, I mostly do it myself, but I do know that when I get something going, if I put a drum loop to it, I'm more apt to finish it really quick. If I put a drum part down or something, I'm more focused on it, and then live it can change a little bit, but I think that drums just is, that's it. The drum is it's our first instrument, really. It's definitely this country's first instrument, if you want to think about the Native Americans, and then after that would be the banjo, which the slaves brought over. So it's like our indigenous instrument is the drum first, and then the banjo. So, Americana, it was bound to. They were bound to find a way to commercialize it. You're not going to get any inspiration starting with a banjo loop, so you gotta go to the drums on that one.
So I also have another song. I have another song called "To Be a Great Bluegrass Player, You Have to Be a Bit of a Dick," and that comes from that Dayton school of just like that hard ass bluegrass side of dudes,
right?
But it's completely not true but it does all come from an incident that happened in Columbus, Ohio, where I went to learn from the old guys that played every Saturday down in the basement, the smoky basement of the bluegrass shop. They had a sticker on it with a picture of Bela Fleck, his face, and then a circle around it and a line through his face, and it said, "Mama don't allow no Fleck tones playing around here," which is a joke about an old bluegrass song, and just really a really asshole comment about, we don't do it that way. You don't walk up to the 4-chord here. That's some John Denver hippie shit, son.
Right.
It's like, so there's a strict world of bluegrass. So I did write this tune that's mostly a talking comedy song that'll never be recorded. But the banjo it gets so many jokes and stuff like that, but I'm so glad to see its resurgence in young people that are playing it all over the place. And then, Bela Fleck, man, he's one of the greatest musicians that ever walked the face of the earth. I don't necessarily sit around and listen to his music that much, but to disrespect somebody that's a great musician like that, always kind of like, I try, again, I'm trying not to talk shit in my life about anything, because look what's going on in the world right now.
Yeah.
The way people talk, the way people talk one place and then they talk another, it's like locker room, whatever, it's like,
On that end, how sick of this election cycle are you?
Because I'm addicted to it though. I'm addicted to watching the country just roll in the mud,
right?
Like just like crushing down to the bottom, and like I'm addicted to it. And the other day I had a layover in Dallas Fort Worth, the most poetic of airports for me. Once because I got busted for weed there like 10 years ago. Just another side story that happened to me, and probably the reason that my music is played on the Outlaw Country Station. But
you are an authentic outlaw. I thought getting busted for weed in Texas got you like 30 years in prison. How'd you avoid that?
You know what happened? I was playing this show called Wood Songs in Kentucky. I want to tell this story for real. It's like, because I've got a song called Lexington Jail as well, and I am not an outlaw. Just a little bit of a romantic anarchist. But basically what happened is some guy gave me a joint and I was like, okay, whatever. And my wife was like, you're not putting that, skanky weed with this, with my good weed or whatever. This is really what happened. Right. So I threw it in a matchbox and it stayed in my backpack or my knapsack for 3 weeks. I forgot about it.
Right.
And I was going through, it was right after 9/11 and I was going through, Dallas, Fort Worth. And I was all of a sudden pulled in this special line and this young Latina, guard who had the 9 stripes, 11 stars, patch, that new organization, that new federal, checking or policing things. And she saw it and I was like, oh, just throw that in the garbage. Just come on. And she got on the walkie talkie and there I was busted.
Oh, no.
I know people were getting on the plane and knew me. And it was a completely behind the MTV behind the scenes, whatever moment for me. Although there was no cameras there, luckily. So yeah, what I was trying to say there is, I guess that the Dallas Fort Worth airport is a very special place for me.
Sure.
And the plane I had, had a flat tire. So I was stuck there for 6 hours and it was the day of Pussygate or whatever you want to call it, which I'm just going to say the word because I know it's demeaning. It's like, I don't know. You and I have been around rock and roll. We know there's some people that are a little bit over the line and then some people that are just, trying to be civil human beings. But one thing that I can't stand the last couple of days is hearing people say the P word. I think that's just way worse. I'm totally hooked on following the cycle of what's going on because I'm obsessed with my country and proud in many ways. And I want it to go on the right, as you can probably, guess, I'm a little bit to the left of some.
I was going to say, I sense a populist streak in you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm wearing a Woody Guthrie voter registration shirt, and I love Woody's thing. Mostly his super creativity, his hyper creativity, if you want to call it that, and the fact that he was like left wing, right wing, chicken wing. It's all the same to me. It's like do the right thing.
Right.
And we have different opinions in this country about what the right thing to do is a lot of time, and it just, some folks, I mean, I don't know, man. Migration and is the one thing. It's like that is for all of eternity of humankind.
Yeah.
Like we've migrated to where we need to go because we need to feed our families and stuff like that. And
by the way, blaming immigrants for something that an old white dude in a boardroom did to you in your town is the dumbest. I mean, it's just wildly ignorant.
There's obviously the 2 Americas thing, or possibly 3 is happening. But we had one civil war already. It was very brutal. And we don't need to go down that road. And I don't think we're going to at all, but it's like, I hear what's going on the radio because I listen to the AM too. I listen to it all. And
right.
I'm a huge radio freak. I don't have the ham station in the basement or anything like that. I haven't gone there yet, but that's yet. That could happen. But I listen to what's going on, and I listen to the other side. My dad, 93 years old, man, he helped register voters for Barack Obama, and he's just a great old dude. And he also will watch Fox News just so he can scream at the TV or something. Right. I don't go that far, but I do listen to the AM radio guys, and I just, I don't need to say their names. You know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, sure.
And watching them implode, crash and burn this week, I'm not saying I'm deriving pleasure from it, but I'm listening to it with much fascination because it's like, it's time. It's time now.
I think it's hard for me to watch. And I'm coming from a very left-wing point of view too.
Yeah.
No secret there. But Trump is such a buffoon and so offensive on so many levels that I feel like that clouds people's understanding of the reality of what the mainstream Democratic Party does nowadays. And I'm not talking about what people like Hillary Clinton say in stump speeches. I'm talking about what they do, what they support. And I think that because you have the one choice is so far out that people get wrapped up in the sort of almost, it's like watching sports, you know, and they want to be on the winning team with the good guys.
Yeah,
and they don't realize
coming
the lesser of two evils things, I get that, maybe if I lived in a swing state, I'd vote for Hillary Clinton, but I think that you have to be honest with yourself about what that system is that you're supporting, what they do.
Right. When I lived in California, I voted for Ralph Nader.
Right.
And I wouldn't necessarily take that back. But you look at the election results in Florida, and just I've been posting it to different people that are talking about it, because I want them to see what really happened there in Florida in the vote count, and not just Ralph Nader, what he did. There's like several other candidates that took these votes, and like that change right there, that was it. I mean, that Al Gore losing that election, was a major diversion in the path of this country, I would say. And he by the way is campaigning with Hillary today, I think, in somewhere.
But I think the reality for me, anyway, I mean, I guess there's only one reality, but when you look at what happened in Florida, and I always remind people about this, and then people get mad at me and start yelling at me. But if you look at Ralph Nader, he got 90,000 or 100,000 votes, and the official win tally was 500 or 600 votes or something. So it's easy to say, well, he cost Gore the election. But if you actually parse those numbers, he was pretty much evenly divided between registered Republicans and registered Democrats. So if the assumption is, if you're registered as a Democrat, you would have voted for the Democrat. Had he not been in the race, then it was actually pretty much split down the middle.
Yeah, I hear you.
And there's more. There were over 300,000 registered Democrats that voted for Bush.
Right.
So why aren't we blaming those people? And there were over 1 million registered Democrats in Florida that didn't vote at all. So to me, Al Gore losing that election is 100% the fault of Al Gore and the way he ran his campaign. I think
it always is.
We need to put a little more responsibility. Like, poor Ralph Nader, all that guy ever did was do good for this country.
Yeah.
And he's the only guy that didn't do something illegal and sketchy in Florida.
Right.
It's like, look what the Republican Party did.
Yeah, I think Al Gore knows that. Al Gore knows that he dropped the ball.
Didn't even win his home state.
Yeah, I think he knows that. And your shit. I agree with you. I think I just feel rough for those that are coming of age to vote right now.
It's like, interesting because
it's like Taco Bell, and it's like
they have
a bummer.
I think people our age, and certainly people our parents or grandparents' age, like we got to live through the fruits of the New Deal and the Great Society and the investment in infrastructure in America.
Right.
We weren't alive at that time, but all that infrastructure investment we benefited from in our lifetimes. Whereas kids nowadays that grew up, that were born in the 90s or whatever, or the 80s.
Good times.
They don't have a connection to that. So they have far less of a connection to what the Democratic Party used to stand for. And I think that it's easier for them to see it clearer because we all have this like FDR image in our head that hasn't existed for a long time.
Imagine what it was like to come of age in the era of just after Kennedy's killed, Martin Luther King killed, bunch of great rock stars die, Kent State and Watergate.
Yeah.
So early 70s, I mean, every generation is just like, oh my God, the world has just gone completely to shit, and we're toast. And then Ford comes along and pardons the criminal,
right?
Nixon. So at that point, you're like, well, why? Why would I vote? That's it. I'm moving to a farm, and we're done. This is ridiculous. So. And then, the amnesia, the collective amnesia, or whatever, sets in, and we move on, and we just keep on going. So, think about what those anybody must have thought at that time, and I guess traditionally people do grow more conservative as they grow older.
Right.
I don't feel like that's going to happen to me, but maybe it has in a few things.
The opposite happening to me. I don't know.
Well, yeah, you get, and it just feels more I mean, I went to the hot springs in Desert Hot Springs yesterday, and I love that place for like the conversations that happens in those springs are great. And yesterday it was just tub after tub of libertarians just going to town,
right.
Just people, just strangers from all over the country, like talking about what's going on, and there's definitely a libertarian streak.
The desert has that thing. There for sure.
It's full of the desert. I can understand moving out there from LA because that's what I did, and there's a pretty decent youth movement out there now. Like there's some youngsters out there, and I don't know why I said that word. That just immediately makes me old. But it's like saying the word hipster is if you're saying that, what you really mean is youngster.
Right.
You know,
right.
If you're saying that word already, you're just removed from.
I had that feeling watching SNL the other night with my wife. I was like, you know,
you had that moment.
I don't think it's funny, but I think it's just written 20 years younger than me. I think I'm finally at that thing where like, oh, I don't get this anymore.
I love that. That's a moment in life that people go through. Your SNL is not really doing it for you anymore. Moment. And,
right. Totally.
There's all those things. And then all of a sudden when you get pulled over by a cop and he's younger than you, there's all the different.
That happened long ago.
Yeah. The shifts of life. You're like, oh yeah, okay. I'm, the cop is, is way younger than me. Wow, we got into politics all right there, but that's just the way it's bound to happen. And I'm like an optimist about it still.
Yeah.
And, but I certainly,
think there's a lot to be optimistic about.
Yeah. I'm lucky. I'm out there traveling around. I do feel like I understand the country a lot more than most Americans, not because I've traveled around the country itself, although I was in all 50 states before I turned 40. It's because I've been to the third world and because I've been to Europe and I've been overseas. And that gave me a greater understanding of my country and how great it can be and how wonderful it is and our cultural. The thing that we gave to the world, the greatest thing that we gave to the world, I'd have to say, the Constitution is one thing, but let's go culturally here and let's face it, it's
blues, jazz,
yeah,
country, sure.
It's definitely it's rock and roll and maybe some jeans too, but the jazz thing is just it's worldwide. So wherever you are, you're listening. You just hear it anywhere you are in the supermarket. You're like you hear our country's music and it's just kind of a powerful thing to be part of that. And it's something not to take lightly and to be proud about. And thank you for the British that came and taught us how awesome our music could be at one point,
Right.
They came back and right at the right time when we needed it and, got the 60s going by teaching us how ass shakingly, liberating
Muddy Waters could be.
Yeah. Like this is what it is, and they haven't done it. There's quite the same sense for me, but it's like I look forward to traveling to the UK in the very near future, the not so United Kingdom anymore, and seeing what that's all about. Because I'm like I said, I'm kind of anthropology is part of the gig for me, and I can't get enough of it apparently.
So you traveled, I'm sorry, just to take a left turn here, but you mentioned going back to the UK and Europe. So you were over there for 7 years busking, doing your thing. How did then the Haynes Boys get together? Let's talk Haynes Boys for a minute, because that's actually how I initially got turned on to you, is through that album. That when I got turned on to it was a little after the fact. And I'm happy to see that it's in Spotify now. Anybody listening, go to Spotify and listen to it.
There's some rock and roll
because
in
that's
there.
a great record. But when I first got it, it was like something that people passed around because it was a little after the fact, and I couldn't find it anywhere.
Yeah.
And so I also know nothing about that time in your career. Tell me about the Haynes Boys. How come it was one album and done? And
what happened was I was over there traveling, and then I would come back to Columbus and check in, and there was a band called the Haynes Boys, 3 dudes, and they...
Were any of them named Haynes?
No, it was named after a troubled family from Pennsylvania. There were these kids. It was a catchphrase, these were these kids in a neighborhood somewhere that caused a lot of trouble, apparently, and would stealing and just whatever, the ruffians, the miscreants of the neighborhood.
Like as in those damn Haynes Boys.
It's exactly right, and so then it became like, hey man, who took my beer? Who took my pizza? Or whatever, and or whatever it would be, they would be blamed on the Haynes Boys. So these guys formed this band. I never liked the name, I never did, but I was just kind of wandering, and they backed me up for a show. They're like, we like your songs, let's do it. And then they asked me to join the band, and I was like, well, we're going. This is what I do. I'm a lifer, so we're doing this. And we came over to England and went on this little pub tour, and that was our little moment of like really getting it together as a band. So we came back, played South by Southwest. One of the employees for the Judds was there. We had a cassette. They gave the cassette to Brad Jones, the producer in Nashville, who runs Alex the Great. Next thing you know, we're down in Nashville making a record. And the thing about the Haynes Boys, though, is that it was really kind of, like it's hard to be in a band. You know that.
Yeah.
Like you got all these dynamics. And there was one of us that was married to a British woman, and he, was having a kid at the time. So we made the record, and he couldn't do this. He couldn't commit his life to the road. He just couldn't. And then the drummer for the band, his other band got signed to Warner Brothers. They were called Gaunt. They're an amazing band, a punk rock band that just killed it. And then, so that was going on. So it was like I was in a band where it was the side project for other members of the band. So but it was my main project. So that's why it was one album and done. But if you hear it, basically, we were the band that would be playing at that time in the 90s. It all like coincides with this one thing, because I was a street musician over in Europe. Like Beck was there, and we busked together in Paris and went to Jim Morrison's grave together, and like met some girls from Scandinavia and Iceland. Actually, brought them back to our apartment, started playing music, and they bolted. and then so I meet, and then Beck all of a sudden starts nailing it, and I see him at South by Southwest, and he's playing with Johnny Cash, and then boom, he explodes. And so he basically, it all happened at the same time. Like the Haynes Boys were playing gigs, and then Beck comes to Columbus, has to do 3 shows at the Tiny Bar because he's like huge now.
Sure.
Kurt Cobain died the next day after that show. And then the Haynes Boys, we were this band that played, Hank Williams songs and Bird songs and Elvis Costello songs and the American Music Club songs. And then AC/DC, and there was rock and roll and heavy stuff in there, but it was also, we were grounded in songwriter stuff.
Yeah.
So in a long way of explaining it, like a lot of cultural stuff was, shifted around for that band to do well. And then Cracker took us on tour, and we played a great tour with them and became a really good band, but it was everybody else's side project. So I left town and moved to LA without even telling anybody. And I came out here, and it was like they were handing out record deals at the city gate. When I got here, like a week after I got here, I'm EMI, and a great friend named Damon Booth, who was working there, introduced me to Cameron Strang, who was running New West Records out of his bedroom. And that led to working with Joe Ciccarelli, the great producer, engineer, who introduced me to the guys in Wilco, or Jay Bennett to be specific. And then that's how I ended up making that record with New West. So a lot of things happen where your band gets, dusted and you go off to do your own thing. I flirted with the time of using a band name instead of my name. And I that's very much the trend of
the new Haynes Boys.
Yeah. I was actually really glad to shake that name. And trying to explain it was too weird. And,
right.
And but the album did get reissued on vinyl.
I saw you guys did some reunion shows.
Yeah, limited. And then we did a reunion show and had a blast playing music with my friends. There was no bullshit about legal stuff or whatever. We just got to play as a band together, and that's really what we were having fun doing in the first place. And so the story of the old Haynes Boys, man. Will we make a second record? I don't know. I don't think so.
Are you still friendly with all those guys?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Are in relatively close contact?
Definitely. One of them, Jovan, runs a coffee shop in Columbus, Ohio called Yeah Me Too, and it's great coffee. And the bass player, lives in England with his wife and family. I'll see him shortly. And the guitar player is in Thomas Jefferson Slave Apartments, classic punk rock band, still doing it from Columbus, Ohio. So I know them all. We're buddies, of course. There was never any animosity.
It's just great to hear. Yeah, that time, it's like a little before everybody's life was constantly documented on the internet. So there isn't much out there.
I know, to be in the van without a cell phone and actually talk to each other.
To have a Thomas guide.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Those days.
That's right. I do know my way around the country now pretty well. Like I still get lost in DC. And then Pittsburgh is insane. I don't know what's going on in that town. If you don't have even the iPhone, you can get lost with that.
I find myself constantly using my MapQuest app around LA to the point where sometimes I will force myself, like, God damn, what am I doing?
Well, I've
lived here forever. I know my way around. What am I doing?
Well, here it'll tell you when where to avoid traffic.
Right.
So there's a whole nother use for it. And look at that. We just completed the circle right back to what I'm about to go get in, get in some more of it. I think now that we're out here by the beach, I might have to go just take a stroll.
Get some sun on your face.
Yeah, I did a Ted Hawkins tribute album a couple years ago. Do you know that guy? Mm-mm. He's a black guy that played on the beach, and Ted Hawkins. He played on Venice Beach. He was a Venice Beach busker, and then he made a couple records that were amazing. And a little label out of Austin, Texas, 930 Records, and Lagunitas Beer came together to like make this tribute album to him. And there's a new one coming out for a songwriter named Adam Carroll, who I would love to shout his name from every podcast rooftop in the world. Adam Carroll lives and works in Texas, down in the hill country. And he is one of the greatest writers I've ever crossed paths with, for sure. He's one of those guys that puts you in the moment of the characters of his songs that he sings about. And we covered a song called Black Flag Blues, me and Aaron Lee Tastian. Do you know that guy?
I do not personally, but
Aaron. Have a chit chat with Aaron. Aaron's in town somewhere right now. He played a gig yesterday in town, and I've known him from Ohio since he was before he could get into bars and stuff. So I've known him for a while and seen him explode through his amazing talent, and he is like one of the greatest musicians and singers that I know. And his songwriting is starting to just kick ass, and he's just doing it. He's on New West.
Right.
And and I'm friends with New West too. Like I'm not on that label anymore.
Yeah, sure.
And yet, is there a red parenthetical number next to my name in the file? Yeah, it certainly is there. And you know what? They're my friends, and they have a vested interest in me doing well and continue to make music, and they support me.
Yeah.
And
that's good to hear.
And and
most people don't say that about their former label.
Well, yeah. I mean, they had the case of the difficult to manage Tim Easton on their roster, just like, what is this guy doing? He's like, doesn't he understand he's contracted to us? He can't just go whip off a bootleg and send right. or whatever it was I was doing. And he can't just paint 500 vinyls of his own vinyl and whatever.
It's funny. That's something I wanted to ask you about. And I mentioned your Instagram feed earlier, but your Instagram feed, I feel like every time I see it, you're like hand painting something awesome or doing some cool project, or you're like in Alaska, or
yes.
And so my
Alaska.
question for you is your Instagram real, or is it a put on? Like, do you really lead that bohemian life? And I'm pretty sure you've already answered that question over the course of this interview.
It's
so I was like, God damn, that guy's always creating.
It's been enjoyable, and it's still like I look forward to the new stuff every day. The painting of the albums thing came from Joshua Tree. There you are out in the edge of the middle of nowhere. You're 2 hours from where we are right now, unless it's traffic time, then it's like 8 hours. But I mean, there's nothing to do out there except work on your craft. So I decided, CDs were like just, they're on the floor of the car.
Yep.
You get in someone's car, you crunch a CD, you're like,
yep.
No one gives a shit. It's like, it's just disrespectful to someone's art or music or whatever, and no one cared. And it's just so fun to lay on the couch and look at an album cover or read the lyrics. Everybody knows this, all us music makers and musos and stuff. And but I decided I was going to take it one step farther and like start screening album covers. Or I'm just doing different things, and then move art into and move like art shows and into what I do. And I look at some of those now. I saw one last night and I'm like, wow, boy, I was it's just like listening to some of your early tunes. Like,
right.
Yeah, it's like
still kind of working it out at that point.
Yeah, exactly. Let's face it. Like visual art is wonderful to do. Just like sitting on the couch and playing guitar is very therapeutic and good for you. Or playing the drums, like doing that every day is really good for your brain.
Sure.
Every time you can, just sit there and keep time. And painting is the same way. Okay, I'm not good at it yet. I'm still at the folky. I'm painting at an 11-year-old level. I'm just like having fun. It's like what do our kids do, man? They paint. And they bring it to you, and you're like, "Oh my God, that's so beautiful!" And you put it in the gallery, which is known as your fridge.
Yep.
The cover of your fridge. You put it on. That's their show.
Yeah.
And then at some certain point, they stop getting encouraged or something, or we all did, or I don't know what it is. Or some just keep going with it. Like no one ever stops. No one discourages them from it. And my parents never discouraged me from writing songs or they never like sat me down and like, you've got to come on, get your shit together and let's
get serious about that math.
Yeah.
Homework, son.
Yeah, it could have, Yeah, wow. I mean, parenting again, but with the parenting. But my parents, man, they were the greatest, and I took a lot of it for granted, And also my sister's a visual artist, and my brothers too. I know that I know now that they mostly raised me really, because at the point of number 7, like your parents are off, they're like,
oh yeah,
hey, it's cocktail hour, okay? You take care of that.
Yeah.
They've done the job.
I think with each, I have 3 kids myself, and I think with each one you realize that you've over-parented the one before it. So it's like my third is so independent in a cool way because he didn't get that like helicopter parenting to the same extent that, say, my first one did.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see it happening with what we're doing, and congratulations, by the way, because that is real parenting. What you're talking about there, I have one, and there's a great, massive difference.
We're outnumbered at my house.
You've got there's a coalition against you.
Totally.
The kids are like they've bonded to form their.
I was thinking about that at breakfast this morning, man. I got up and I made my kids some eggs and toast and sliced up some fruit, and put it out, and I go get them and bring them down, and it's not the same bread that they're used to getting, because we'd had some pasta the night before, so we had some nice French bread, and I was thinking to myself, I'm going to make this nice French bread. It's fresh, this is going to be great. They've got their organic cantaloupe and the whole thing, and my kids come down, they're just like, out of principle, like, I don't like this bread. I'm like, you haven't tried the bread. I'm not going to eat it. And it's like, it's so funny, like the way there's just 3 of them and me, and short of like shoving it down their throat, which obviously I'm not going to do, what can you do?
You're going to go hungry.
Like, no, you're going to eat it. And they all just were like, nope.
Well, you're going to go, I mean, you'll eat when you're hungry, I guess.
Exactly.
It's like, well, I see the helicoptering going on, and I try to really step back from it and not, it's really just try to be supportive in every way. Since I'm not there very often, especially lately, I'm really in a tough spot right now. I mean, my marriage is in a tough spot. It just simply is. And it's it's very serious. And so I'm just trying to be the best I can. But yeah, like the amount of sass that this kid's given me sometimes, I'm stunned. On one way, I'm really proud. And on the other way, I'm like, well, you're going to go hungry then.
Right.
Then you're not going to eat.
Yeah.
You're going to go to bed hungry. And not in those brutal terms.
Right.
We've learned from all those other parents that have given us advice and just some common sense, and obviously what we learned from our parents. I mean, that's just the teachers that taught us. You try to do better every time, but there's been some amazing things where you're faced with. You're like, the answer here is to not do anything at all, and just you're going to find out that you're going to be hungry later, and it's going to hurt, and you're going to get irritated about 10 a.m. at school.
Exactly.
And you're going to, resort to whatever. And
it's the funny thing with kids that absolutely, you just see it all the time. You're like, you can't think 3 steps ahead. And that's what I'm here to do as your parent. So take your fucking jacket with you. It's going to get cold later.
I can just totally hear parents of older kids listening to us going right now going,
just hit them.
Or like you have no idea what's coming down the pipe,
Right.
The pike. Yeah, it's like, because I've tried so hard not to say that to other dads, like, you have no idea what's going on, or dads that are expecting, or moms that are expecting. But I must have heard that 50 times and still hear it, and will now still hear it later, and can hear someone thinking it. I can hear my sisters thinking it right now, like, they're not even, they're not even teenagers. Do you have teenagers?
Just became a teenager 2 weekends
so
ago.
Your life is just
it's crazy. It's the greatest thing in the world, and it's insane at the same time.
Yeah, right. You just try to do the best you can, and it's not easy, and you're not allowed to complain about it.
Right. Well, it's great, and really, as hard as it can be and frustrating, it's like there's nothing to complain about, because I just adore. It sounds, you can't help but sound cliche when you talk about your kids, but my kids are so cool. My kids are like, they're like they have grown into the kids that, and I guess this is what we all kind of do as parents, but they've sort of grown into like what I kind of wish I had been when I was a kid. It's cool.
Nice. Well done. I want to thank my mom, who's passed on now, for pointing me in the direction of The Times They Are Changing. I think Dylan, was his second album by Dylan, like that album. And I've been thinking about it a lot lately because I found it in a record store in Sioux Falls. And I played this really great record store there called Total Drag, and just really cool, creative kids in the middle of the country that are just doing it, and it's a really beautiful spot. And I found the album there, and I remember that my mom had like made me listen to it, kind of. So this is all her fault. This is like 6th or 7th or 4th grade or something. Yeah, no, it's still in Japan. So 4th or 5th grade, like I sat between the speakers and heard Dylan sing With God on Our Side, you know, which is just a huge history lesson. And I guess Dylan himself disavowed that song or whatever, but you know, the tune is very like, with God, it's about war, and like, with God on our side, we'll beat the other side, and they too think they have God on their side. So it's like, it's very poignant,
right?
You know, ahora. So it's I found it the other day, and I got it for my daughter.
Nice.
She's into Prince right now, which is great. You know,
you
try not to push anything, but
sure.
But I remember hearing that song, hearing his voice and guitar by itself, and it had a huge impact on me that I ignored for many years, and then kind of came back to it now. And so I just listened to it again. I just listened to the record, and I mean, I want to make an album that does that for people, like. And that's a little bit what I've been doing with this new one, although with a lot of production on it.
Yeah.
But man, the sound of that, just that mono recording of one guy's voice and one guy's guitar, and that's what I usher all and any youth that reaches out to me, or aspiring songwriters that reach out to me. I try to tell them to get it together with just you and that instrument, and not think about all those other toys.
Yeah.
Things that can distract you from it, because once you've got that together, you know, it's really, the other stuff is just for, you know, fun and all that. So it was cool to kind of revisit that, and it was my mom that played me that record.
Thanks, Mom.
Yeah.
Well, on that tip, would you like to use your voice and your guitar to sing us a song?
I have my guitar there in the case, but this one seems just fine.
Yeah, you're welcome to use it.
I would like to actually get the harp out, though. So if you want to hit pause, go. I don't mean to mess your...
No. I was just double checking my notes here to see if there were any burning desire questions that I had forgotten.
Look at that.
But I think we got... Oh, yeah.
Moment right there. This is a tune called Elmore James, a little love song to a man who could shake up a fish fry. Pretty good. A lot of racket being made in the world today, and these drum machines all sound the same. I think I hear a song. Is it a song or is it just fun and games? Call me old-fashioned or behind the times, but the one who got the ass shaking every night was Elmo James. Elmo James. Elmo James. Elmo James. Get a little sip of whiskey, put the lights down low. Drop a clean needle on the stereo, grab her by the belt buckle and call out her name. Give her a kiss, spin her around, soon she wanna go downtown to see Elmo James. Elmo James. Elmo James. Elmo James.
my broom, sweep the floor. The waitress just danced out the door. The boss man said she had to catch a midnight train. Some girls like to keep it clean, some girls like to get down and mean. To Elmo James, Elmo James, Elmo James, Elmo James, Elmo James, Elmo James, Elmo James. Good morning.
While you were sleeping on your generation's watch.
All right, that was Tim Easton doing a Walking the Floor exclusive acoustic version of his song Elmore James from his latest album, American Fork. Now, make sure you get on over to timeaston.com to see what's going on with him. He is a man who lives perpetually on the road, so he's probably touring, I'm guessing. Or if you want, you can go check him out on Instagram at Tim Easton Songs and check out whatever he's up to, listen to all his records, and support Tim Easton. That's what I say. While you're supporting Tim Easton, make sure you get on over to the iTunes store, listen to our old, and not old, just our past interviews with great people like Mike Ness and Dwight Yoakam and Merle Haggard and Sturgill Simpson and Jason Isbell and all the good old stuff that's just sitting around there in the iTunes store collecting dust. Listen to it. Give us a review. Give us a rating. It helps. I swear. We'll be back next week. Adios, amigos.